We're usually having people bring out speakers to introduce them. Our first speaker didn't have any preferences, so in the spirit of NA, we're going to ask a newcomer to come up and introduce our first speaker. And so I'm asking Isaac to come up.
My name's Isaac. I'm an addict. Mel H. Mel got clean in prison in California in 1968. Later on, Mel carried an H&I meeting back to that same institution. And around 1969, Mel helped start 5 NA meetings. These were the 6th through 10th NA meetings in the Los Angeles area. He served as GSO chairman around 69 or 70. Mel conceived of and organized the first World Convention in 1971. He was on the board of trustees from 1975 to 1979. I'd like to introduce Mel H.
My name is Mel. I'm an addict. Well, you said all, so I can go sit down now, huh? It's a privilege to be invited to a conference, history conference. In fact, it surprised me. I got the nod for the World Convention in San Diego this past July, and within a couple of hours I got a phone call from Nashville if I wanted to participate in this history conference. And I thought, that's a God thing, man. I've never been asked to go a lot of places, and all of a sudden I'm asked to come to 2 different places, and I felt privileged. I felt honored that they would want to hear from me. NA has done a lot for me. NA has done a lot for just anybody sitting in here, whether you're brand new, like the fellow that introduced me, or somebody that's been around for a whole lot of years. It's a life-changing situation. NA is a way of life. It's not just a program. I've always said going to a Narcotics Anonymous isn't necessarily Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous is found in the basic text, the words, the changes that takes place within us that molds us to be the kind of people we've always wanted to become, but we're maybe afraid. You know, it knocks away some of the fears. It knocks away some of the resentments as we build on our character and discover who we are and disregard and make amends and do all those things. And all of a sudden the program becomes a way of life. It's not something that I want to take lightly at all. I know this is a history conference, and I want to get into history. History's fun. I think the history of NA is a miracle all of its own. What started out, I discovered too. Now here's another thing. As I thought NA started in 1953. Well, it really did. It really started and stayed in 1953. But I found out, I got slapped a few times by old Bobby B. And he says, you know, it started in 1947. Of course, that book, that big book that we have for history, has talked about some stuff happening back in New York that kind of fell apart and then picked back up in 1953 with Jimmy. As my bio said, I was locked up in the state penitentiary. I got busted in 1967 for possession and sales and all that junk, and I wound up in a place I was only supposed to be there 6 months, but I didn't know the games that you had to play to get in and out of penitentiary, so I told the truth, and they laughed at me and kept me for a while longer. But in that place, I found this program, and there was a couple guys that came out. In fact, the Mexican Mafia was talked about last night. Sylvia, she had 4 brothers, and one of the brothers carried the message to me inside that place the 3rd week I was there, and brought the guy that became my sponsor, who went to that liquid program as well as some NA meetings. I heard that term liquid program just a few weeks ago. I thought I'd use it. And that guy became my sponsor. He had 17 years, and he was just the funniest guy I ever heard in my whole life. He had energy inside him that I always wanted, and And yet Hank, who passed away probably about 3 years ago, 3 years ago now, he had the saddest story I ever heard. And every one of his brothers and sisters, except for one, which I hear last night, was on drugs or doing some other stuff. And I thought to myself, he has no reason to be clean. This guy's got he should be loaded, man. But he got up there and carried the message and the hope of Narcotics Anonymous to me inside that place. And I became involved even inside the penitentiary. I became chairman of the meeting there, and I even started a step study meeting in that place. And we had 2 meetings going in that place. But when I got out, I had one phone number on me, and that was my sponsor's phone number. The guy asked to be my sponsor. And I don't know how many of you have ever done institutional work in your life, but if you do institutional work, you turn around, you go in these places, and you pour your heart out about how NA has saved your life, and maybe a guy or a gal will ask you for their phone number, and you'll never hear from them, ever. So sure enough, that day I got out of that place, I called up Eddie, and I said, "Hey, Eddie, this is Mel." He says, "Who?" And I said, "Well, you met me at CRC." He said, "Where?" And as we got into the conversation, he says, "Oh, yeah, I remember you." He says, "Where you at?" And I says, "Well, I'm in Whittier, man. I'm back home. I'm out of that place." And he says, "Well, I've never had anybody call me." And so I said, "Well, I want to go to a meeting." He says, "Well, I'll be," and this is on a Monday. By the way, that Monday was October the 7th of 1968. And he said, "Meet me at a meeting in Temple City on Las Tunas." I am standing up. And it was one of those liquid meetings I had to go to. See, I didn't have any addresses to any NA meetings. I didn't know where any were at. There was, in fact, it took me a month and a half to find an NA meeting. It took me a month and a half to find one. And when I found one, it was in somebody's home. In fact, he's dead now, so I can say his last name, Ron Larson and his wife, Kathy. Found it in their home. And I don't remember if Gene was there or not, but I know that Jimmy was there. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But I went to this liquid meeting, and, I always had this impression of AA that it was nothing but old people. Now, even though I saw that movie, Day of Wine and Roses, I thought it was nothing but old people that just got too lazy to go to liquor stores, so they retired to AA to play bingo. And I didn't want nothing to do with that. I walked into that meeting, and sure enough, there was a lot of old people, and, some of them didn't have any teeth. They smiled, and they gave you the willies. I can't talk about that anymore. I can take my teeth out now, too, but But I walked in there, and they had those same sayings that we use in NA. Man, we need you. Keep coming back. It works. They had all the cliches, and I thought, man, they don't need me. And in fact, I got nervous about being there. I thought they wanted something. I started leaving money at home, jewelry at home. Anything I might have still had, I didn't want to bring it because I didn't want to be ripped off. But what they were trying to do is give something away, and that's the giving away of the love of this program. And when I did find NA, I felt at home. I felt really at home because now I can talk about my other addiction. I can talk about stuff you couldn't talk about in that liquid fellowship. And I met some really cool people like Gene. Gene became an instant friend to me. He had a great story. He has a great story about an old dresser drawer. And I always try to, every time he shares, I say, "Come on, Gene, talk about that dresser drawer." I love that story. And I met Sally, and I met Bill. I met several of the people that are going to be sharing here tonight. To me, the reason that I'm here is probably to bring up some of the history, but actually there's a twofold reason. I want to be with my friends. I want to be with the people that I got clean with. I don't get to do this. I don't know how much longer God's going to give me on this planet. I have no idea how long I'm going to be left on this planet or how long they're going to be left. But while I'm on this planet, and they are too, I want to spend time, quality time with my friends. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, if you've been around for any period of time, you've developed some relationships that are special. And that's what I remember when we were brand new, when I did find some of these meetings, and I didn't get to all 5. There was 5 meetings that I knew about in L.A. Now I hear that there was actually a few more. In fact, CRC, the penitentiary, there was 2 meetings there. And so that means there was 7 meetings, maybe. I don't know if they count that. I'm sure they do. But we knew each other. We knew each other quite well. In fact, in some cases, there was people that had canned pitches, and we all used to lip sync it. Well, we really did a lot of fun things in those days. But we got together quite frequently and did a lot of fun things. If we holidays, we'd have picnics, and we'd have this and we'd have that. I got involved in all those things. I loved doing everything. I mean, I was just like a little kid in a candy store. I wanted a part of it. I wanted to be a part of this thing so badly that I bogarted my way through things. You know, I got a sponsor. I got some new friends. My sponsor gave me one warning. And this was kind of a funny warning. He says, you know, I advise you to get as many phone numbers as you possibly can get, because there's times that I'm having a date and I might be just sitting at home eating spaghetti with my wife and I'll take the phone off the hook. So you better have yourself a lot of phone numbers. And I thought, that's a horrible thing to tell somebody that might be wanting to die and you can't get a hold of the guy that's going to save your life. So I, to this day, I carry around 200-300 phone numbers in my, now my Palm Pilot, but I carry quite a few phone numbers with me. I'm never going to stop thinking about having people to call when I get in trouble. Just because I've been clean for almost 35 years doesn't necessarily mean that I'm well. It means I'm still just like everybody else, trudging one day at a time. I have some information, though. I've got almost 35 years worth of information stored in here to how to survive. I do. I can honestly say, if you ask me a question, I might have an answer. And if I don't, I'll go find it for you. That's the way I feel about things. That's what I tell the guys I sponsor. I don't have all the answers. Answers are in the book, and the answers are out there with a lot of people. Oh, Bill, he cuts hair. I don't know how to cut hair all that good, but if I wanted to learn how to cut hair, I'd go talk to Bill. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's people here that are accountants. If I wanted to know something, I'd go to you and say, how do you do this? But all I have to share with you is my story and how I got here and what happened to me and what it's like today. That's all I've got. You know, and that's a gift, because I could be dead. I could have taken the alternative and said, I don't need this. I don't need you. I could just go out there and experiment. And I know the people that have experimented have expired too. And I know people that have had a lot of time that thought they had it together that expired too. They just went back out one more time to see what it was all about. But as this thing grew, I remember going to a Saturday night meeting where the Mexican Mafia was. It was a step study meeting on, I think, Olympic Street in L.A. That was the closest one to my house on a Saturday night. But every time I turned around, I wanted to go to a meeting that was just too far away, and I'd have to go to the other fellowship on occasion, and I'd go back to NA. And it made me kind of think, you know, I don't really feel that comfortable in that other fellowship, and I really need to be more comfortable in NA. I need to be rock solid in NA. So I put together a meeting. I got invited to a Nar-Anon meeting. That's like Al-Anon. I think you've all heard of Nar-Anon. I went to a Nar-Anon meeting where they asked me to speak. Now, heck, how can I speak? I'm a young punk right out of the penitentiary. I have nothing to share of any recovery to speak of, and they want me to share my story. Well, that was just a blow-by-blow description of how I got loaded. I mean, what do you have to share when you're brand new? Nothing but the war story. But the pastor at that particular church said, you know, why don't you start a meeting here? Now, that was in December of '68. So the first Monday of 1969, I had one of the guy that at that meeting, that was the guy I told the night before. I did something else too that was a definite no-no, and they told me about it afterwards. I published a little news item in a newspaper about, hey, if you're a drug addict and you're looking for help, call this number. And boy, I put my own home phone number on there and everything, and And I had a few phone calls, believe it or not, but they said, "Oh, don't do that, man. That's against your traditions. You can't go do that." And I said, "Well, I did." But the word of mouth got out there, and the next week we had about 4 people show up, and after that it just started to blossom. And we had 20, 25 to sometimes as many as 50 people would show up at this meeting, and it was a fun meeting. And not too long after that, there was another gal that came to me and said, "Well, what do you think about starting another meeting?" I said, "Oh man, why don't you?" And I lit fires under people, and we got another meeting in Paramount, which is not too far from where I live, and that started. And then not too long after that, and this other guy that came to the Monday night meeting says, "Well, I live in Downey." He says, "That's a good place for a meeting. Let's have a meeting there." So we started a meeting there and at a little park, and another guy came to me, and he liked what was going on. He was in West Covina, and I says, "Hey, West Covina is a really good place for a meeting." So we started a meeting there. And the next thing we know, we had one more guy, and this is a guy that one of the 2 guys I use with that are still alive today that's clean. And he started a meeting with another guy I knew in Pico Rivera, and we had a step study meeting going there. And that was cool. We had 5 meetings, 5 more meetings of Narcotics Anonymous. And it formed what we call, I hate this term, I mean, NA is really funny about categorizing places, you know. They became Eastern counties. You know, I laughed at that, and I said, well, why don't we just call it NA and as a whole? This is just a meeting, just an area. But it became an area, Eastern counties. And that was a strong asset to what we had going. And as we watched things blossom, I mean, I have to openly admit to you that I stayed clean with activity, not action. It took me, I hate to admit this, almost 11 years to do an inventory because I was too busy. When you're busy, you don't have time for looking at yourself. You don't have time to look in a mirror, and you don't have a lot of time to even feel. You just get out there and have, you know, inside people will say, "Hey, Mel, how you doing?" "Oh, man, I'm really great." They didn't really ask me, "How you really doing?" Because inside, I was floating around just thinking, man, I don't know what to do with what's going on inside my head. My head's just out to get me sometimes. And I caused myself some problems that weren't good. I got arrested in a felony, and I was looking at 5 years in state penitentiary, and I did it clean. And I had to fight with that inside my head, and I finally had to work an inventory. And I got to looking at me and realized the changes that I needed to make, and I made those changes. And anyway, as the bio said, I did get involved in service in NA, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I mean, they figured they had a duck right out of water. Let's give him something to do. So they made me chairman of this and activities, this and that. I was doing all kinds of fun things, and I remember I mentioned this at the World Convention, and it brought tears to my eyes to think about it. But I mentioned to Bobby B. and a few other people, why don't we have a World Convention? And they laughed and said, well, yeah, that's a great idea. Well, where are you going to have it? And I said, well, how about the Anaheim Convention Center, the LA Convention Center? And they laughed even harder. And they said, well, number one, where are you going to get the money? And number two, where are you going to get the people? And I thought about it for a bit, and I said, you know, you're right. That's a little bit extravagant. So I had to stop and reevaluate. And I got about 5 or 6 people together, and we started meeting. Lo and behold, my best friend, he reminded me of this too after the convention in San Diego. He said, we wound up getting this guy, this is a real coincidence, whose name was Bill Wilson. And he found us the La Mirada Country Club, which was a golf course country club, and they donated that premises to us for that weekend. I didn't remember that. Of course, I'm old, and I didn't remember that. And as it turned out, there was 250 people there. 250 people, 185 paid, and the rest were freebies out of recovery houses. And one of the recovery houses, even Saturday nights, spent the night on the floor of my home. and that was 1971 in November. And that was the most beautiful experience that I can ever remember, because when we left there, nobody wanted to leave. We had tears in our eyes. It was just an upbeat thing. Jimmy was there. We talked about Jack Whaley. He was there. He was a great guy, crazy but great. And I think Gene was there. There was just a lot of people that are still alive. Some of them are still alive that were at that first convention. But you could see the bonding of what was going to happen in that place. You know, and NA started developing with all the little business meetings. We got the tree going, and we got a lot of other things together that kind of brought us into a reality of what Narcotics Anonymous could become. So we met, in fact, on a lot of occasions in Bill's barbershop. I remember many meetings we met at Bill's barbershop, and then we got other places to meet at, and there was a core group of people that were interested. You know, there's always these things in any fellowship, I don't care where you go, where you're going to have people that are audience. They're just here to listen. They're here to maybe help a little bit. They'll shuffle a chair for you once in a while if you really ask them to. And then there's participants, people that'll take and say, hey, I'll do this and I'll do that. There's volunteers that are people that really want to get involved. And yet they're afraid, but they're doing it anyway. They're encouraged and they do it. And all of a sudden, you start to feel a little bit more home. The more you do, the more home you feel. Audience disappears. Participants stay. So are you a looky-hoo or a sticky-hoo? If you're a looky-hoo, you're going to look around and you're never going to feel comfortable and you're going to run away. If you're a sticky-hoo, you're going to side up with somebody. You're going to ask somebody to be your sponsor. You're going to take a few directions. You're going to change your thinking and your way of life. And you're going to find that this program has a lot of helpful tools to make you who you want to be. And that's what I think this thing has done for me. It's given me the tools. And I did like getting involved. I finally got asked to become a member of the Board of Trustees, and I spent several years doing that until my felony came up, and then I had to take a year leave of absence. And after that year leave of absence, they kind of just thought maybe we ought to rotate people. And I remember Chuck told me, he says, well, why don't you just go ahead and resign? And I remember doing that, and a piece of me just fell apart because I really didn't want to let go. I loved Narcotics Anonymous. I loved what it was doing for me. And even though I made mistakes, I knew that there was a few people like Jimmy who called me after my thing, and he would ask me, hey, are you okay? And Bill stopped by to see me. And there's just a bunch of things where people reached out. And, of course, there's a lot of people that don't want to know anything, and they just want to point fingers. We all know those kind. But I don't want to get into that all the way. I know that I was loved in a lot of directions, and I just kept coming back anyway. No matter what, I was just going to keep coming back. I made several of the other conventions that we had at the very beginning, and then I disappeared for a while. I just felt a little deflated, and I went to that liquid program again, and I hated it there. And I stayed there for a little while because people were pointing their fingers at me a little bit, and I felt funny. And so when I did come back around, I kind of touched base, and I low-keyed my entrance back in. And I remember several years ago, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe longer than that now, Bobby B. asked me to participate in an old-timers thing in Burbank, California, and it was a regional convention. And you know, it'd been so long since I've been to a convention here. My mind says, 200-300 people. And I went into this convention, and there was like 9,000 people in Burbank. I didn't think Burbank had that many people. And but people came from a lot of the other areas, and they asked me to participate. And I made a really dumb comment, and it's like I said, I haven't been to a convention in a lot of years, and I remember when it was so of gratitude, because I had no idea that NA was going to grow this large. I had no idea. When I first came around, it was just a small group of people. Now, I can go to a local meeting today and not know most of the people, even though I might have been going in there a lot. I take a look around, all of a sudden, boom, there's a whole bunch of newcomers. I like a lot of things that was said on the early part of these meetings this weekend so far. And I have a thing about newcomers. I still believe newcomers are the most important people at any meeting. And I think that they deserve more attention than a lot of times that they get. I've watched in different meetings I've gone to, people, your cliques, they get together and talk about, hey, their cars and motorcycles. And of course, we have scuba divers back in California. You don't have much to dive in this place, but you know, you had all your hobbies and things, and so they'd get together and they'd drink their coffee, and then some new person would walk in, and for some reason, man, that new person get ignored. And yet there would always be one or two people that maybe like me. I would always go up to somebody that I've never seen before, welcome them to the program, hand them a pamphlet, because that's all we had in those days was the little white book. And introduce, if it was a girl, I introduced her to a bunch of girls and walk away. If it was a guy, I introduced him to a bunch of guys, get him some phone numbers. I'd always do that because that's what was done for me. I remember my sponsor, in fact, when I first got out of the penitentiary, he says, now I want you to stand at the back door and greet people. I says, Eddie, I'm shy. He says, I don't care. I want you to get back in the back and introduce yourself and greet people that are coming in the door. And I says, oh. In fact, he says, he was a circuit speaker, and every once in a while I'd overbook. And he'd say, I want you to go out and speak for me someplace. And at first I thought, well, that's cool. I can get out there and have some fun, you know, I can make people laugh, and I can have some fun. But one time I walked into this meeting and they introduced me, but they said, well, Eddie was supposed to be here, but he couldn't make it. But he sent this guy Mel over, and I could just see their faces like, oh no, that guy's too young to know anything. And next time Eddie called and asked me to speak for him, I said, no, I won't do that. I can't do that. I saw too much disappointment. If you overbook, that's your problem. Cut yourself in half and go both places, you know. And I said, I just have to talk for me. I got to be me and not you. I want to be me more than I want to be you. And so that's kind of some of the things I was going through. But that shyness finally started to disappear, and that a lot of the feelings I had in getting clean and all that fear started to disappear. I mean, you guys really did a miracle with me. Or is it maybe I did a little bit of it on my own just by listening to what you had to say and trying to apply those things to my life? That fear, that inadequacy, that hating me and hating you and all those things started to disappear. I started to feel like a real human being again. I could look in the mirror after 2 years. It took me 2 years to look in the mirror and smile and say I'm okay. The only reason I have a beard is not because I don't like the way I look. It's just I don't like shaving. And I've had this beard for 32 years. It just keeps getting shorter and shorter and shorter, but I refuse to put steel to it. But there was a time I hated me, and I started to like me, and then I started letting you like me, and then I started to love me, and then I started letting you love me, and that stuff started to pour out. See, my sponsor taught me some other things. He says, whatever's missing in your life, start giving it away. If you're lonely, start being a friend to somebody. You know, if you don't feel love in your life, start giving love away, and love will come back to you. And I thought, yeah, whatever's missing in my life, give it away. And you can only keep what you have by giving it away anyway. I need to always remember where I came from, so I never have to relive this thing again. I don't ever want to live that kind of a lifestyle again that caused me as much confusion. Here's another thing. I don't ever want to stand up as a newcomer. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it. I think I would blow my brains out before I come to you and say, hey man, I screwed up. I'm a newcomer. I don't ever want to do that. See, Tuesday's going to make my 35 years. tough time with that. But I realized I'm a person of commitment. I've committed to myself that I don't want what I used to have. I'm a person that has the same phone number. I've been living in my house for over 32 years. Wow, my phone number is in ink. The only thing that's in pencil is area codes. You know how they change. The address is the same. Most people have an address book and everything's in pencil. And I remember somebody saying, you're the only one I know that I have in ink. Because you don't go anyplace. You don't do anything. I've worked in the same company. My dad opened it up, but I bought it. I've been there for 50 and a half years. Doing the same thing. Some people say, man, you're boring. No, I'm not. I just don't know what else to do. I got too big a mouth to go work for somebody else, so I own my own company. It's easier that way. Not really, but I do. And I've committed myself to want to be clean more than I want to be loaded. I don't want to be loaded, man. I want to be a part of the living. I want to share my life with other people. I want to learn like new people. I want to learn from new people. I want to learn what I don't want. How many times do you hear new people share and you think to yourself, you want to slam your mind shut and think about, what am I going to wear tomorrow to work? You don't want to hear anything they got to say, but they say something real profound like drugs are bad. Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was a long time ago, but yeah, that's right. Drugs are bad. They make you do bad things. I said something in San Diego, and I'm sticking to it, man. I'm sticking to it because I believe in it. What this program has taught me is to always reach out and touch someone. Never walk out of a meeting without sharing something with somebody. When you see somebody new in the crowd, don't let that person walk out without the hope. Don't ever let that happen. Be responsible. And I'm saying that not trying to lecture, but I'm saying it to me too. Don't ever forget the responsibilities that we have of sharing this program with other people. And there's a lot of meetings that people go to these days. I've gone to them and I just want to, and I've yelled and screamed. I'm not quite as bad as what Jack used to be, but they get in there and they start drama. Now, I don't know how you feel about drama. Maybe you adjusted to it and say, yeah, that's part of the program. That's part of sharing. But in an open participation meeting, you start talking about everything else but recovery. And a newcomer is thinking, well, is this recovery? Where's the hope? What happened? I thought they were going to talk about how to stay clean. And they don't hear that. And the person goes on for 20 minutes about something going on with the family, the dog, the fleas, I don't know. Everything but recovery. And what happened? The newcomer walks out saying, well, I guess this thing ain't going to work for me. And they just go out and do what they got to do. And I'm saying this to me too. I don't ever want to get caught up in that kind of stuff. If I have a little drama, it's going to be a blipper, but I'm going to share that hope. And if I have something more to say about drama, I'm going to take somebody outside and I'm going to share that drama. But I'm not going to share it in the meeting. I'm not going to waste your time talking about drama because I want to share the hope. I want everybody to know that, man, you can be clean and you can have a new way of life and you can experience things that you've never experienced before. God's going to give you everything you want if you want it bad enough and if you need it, if you want it. I don't ever want to do something that would not enhance somebody else because somebody did that for me. They shared at the beginning some of the most painful things and how they overcame, which gave me the strength to say, if you can do it, I can do it. And I have. I really have. What a privilege to be here. I don't know. I probably could go on a little while bit longer, but I don't really want to. I'm anxious to hear Bill. I haven't seen Bill in 25 years and didn't even recognize him when I saw him. He looks so different. But then again, I had dark brown hair and had all my own teeth, and I was about 50 pounds slimmer. And I was double hip and double slick and double keen and popping my fingers and walking like I had a stick stuck. And now I'm just got arthritis and I can barely get up and barely sit down. Well, that's another story. But you know what? If you're kind of relatively new here or just coming here just to hear the history, carry this history on. Whatever you're hearing tonight or today or some of tomorrow or what you heard last night, take this with you. Share this with other new people coming to this program. Don't let this thing just die right here in Nashville, Tennessee. I could talk just like you two. From Southern California, I could do that. But I don't feel any darts, thank you. Yeah, that's but don't ever let this thing die, because it's the most beautiful thing that ever happened. And thank you, Jim McKinnon. He's in the big meeting in the sky right now, and he had a dream, and all of us that are around, that have been around, felt that dream and kept that dream going. And we're going to pass the torch to all you guys and you gals. Anyway, I guess they allowed me 10 minutes to do the question and answer thing, and I'm really privileged again, and thank you for just listening to me, and I'm going to drop it at that. Pardon?
Can you talk a little bit more about the vision?
The vision? Well, I kind of covered the vision in a direction of never letting the newcomer escape without the hope. So I want that vision to stand up and take this thing every place, in every area, in every part of the world that drugs or alcohol are being used and abused. And I wanted to know, I said the word alcohol, excuse me, but then again, when I came here, we could talk about being sober and clean, and a lot of the words have changed in the last many years. The writings have changed, but still in all, it doesn't really matter. The oldest known drug is alcohol, and drugs were a substitute for alcohol. And so we need to carry it to anybody that's suffering from the drug addiction. My vision is that I want to go to another world convention and see not 25,000 people. I want to see 100,000 or 200,000 people that could actually afford to make it to a place and share the hope.
Thanks.
Okay.
I've got to apologize to Mel. Mel and I have been friends for years, and we were upstairs eating, and Mel said, would you come and introduce me this morning, you know? And so I started joking and laughing about the introduction and all that, you know, and I meant to do it, but I got up there talking to a guy, and I didn't do it, and I apologize.
No problem.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, I think one word that's really impressed me here, and especially with Mel, is the word connecting. And Mel and I have been connected for a long time. He got out of CRC, and then we went back together many, many times during the week. It's about 100 miles, and he'd pick me up, and we'd go out there, and we wouldn't get back till midnight or something, and we'd get up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, go back to work the next day. Never complained about it, never seemed to get tired, you know, we had the energy. The one important thing I think about Mel that he mentioned this morning, that he had a felony account that happened to him after he was on the program quite a long time, you know. And that's a pretty devastating thing when that happens to you. The wonderful thing about Mel and I is that we've been connected for many, many years. And I've got 6 more years than Mel has on the program. And so does that make me more important than Mel? No. You know what makes me important? What makes me important is that I have a connection with the guy that has connected with me when I was accused of a felony after 24 years on the program. I was in a position of possibly spending 20 years in a penitentiary. I lost a job after 29 years with the federal government. I lost everything. My name was in the paper. I was humiliated. A guy in the program was involved in helping to develop this conviction for me, and I was in pretty sad shape. And you know what happened? Because I was connected with Mel, and because Mel had been in the same position at one time. Mel lived in Whittier, California. I lived in Medford, Oregon, which was hundreds of miles away. And Mel called me every week. He said, "Hey, Gene, how you doing, man? You know, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm okay." You know, and sometimes I was pretty down, you know, because I was going to lose everything. I was going to lose my home. I lost my job, my retirement, my status in the community. Nobody would talk to me, not even members in AA or NA, because they knew that I was guilty. And from February of 1986 until I went to trial in October of 1986, Mel called me almost weekly and said, "How you doing, Chief?" You know, and that carried me through. It carried me through. And in October the 6th, 1986, I was found not guilty in a jury trial. But I'll tell you, I could have died during that time because of suicide, because that's why I felt. But it was Mel, because he was connected with me, that I survived. I want to thank him for that.
All right. Oh, there's those cards. Yay. Gene, you're a lovely man. Any other questions?
My name's Corky. I'm a grateful addict today.
Hi, Corky.
I'm just really thankful that I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous. And I have a strong desire to reach out and embrace the addict who's still suffering in the communities that I come from, in the black communities. And I'm just wondering at what point in the history of the program did more black people start getting involved in the program? Because I notice that the old timers who come, there just don't happen to be any black men or women. And I know here in Nashville, I mean, just in this country in general, we have a tendency to continue to segregate ourselves from one another. Not so much in programs, the recovery programs, but in the general communities. And I think that's a big part of why perhaps more black people are involved in programs of recovery. So I'm just wondering how that part of the history has developed. Because what I experience in Narcotics Anonymous is that because we all have such common experiences, regardless of what our backgrounds are, that we embrace each other from the heart. And though we come from different backgrounds, racial, ethnic, religious, economic, academic, and everything else, all of that seems to dissolve in the program of Narcotics Anonymous. And that's one of the wonders and the miracles of this program that I enjoy daily. But still, it's of interest to me to understand how we have come together and how the vision of Narcotics Anonymous can continue to do that. Okay.
Good question, except it doesn't require a big answer. So first of all, for me, I'm a little Jewish guy. And so I know what prejudices can lead up to. And I remember in a church setting, because I find that to be a useful tool as well for me, just like going to meetings. A guy and I were talking, and he says, we talked about prejudices. And he says, "Well, I know about prejudices. I'm black." And I says, "You are? I thought you were a human being." See, my personal eye view of people is that everybody in here doesn't have color. They're human beings, and they're human beings that need the same amount of attention. If you put a barrier to it, what are you doing? You're separating. What we want is fellowship together. Period. I remember years ago when I tell people I'm Jewish, that I have people say, well, some of my best friends are Jews. Oh, really? Well, some of my best friends are human beings. So, Bobby B., who's been around 42 years now, he wasn't the first black guy to come to NA, and he's never going to be the last one. If you had to say color, you have to reach out and touch your own community if that's the case, and bring them. If you see somebody suffering from drug addiction, just offer them hope. If you see them on the streets, just offer them hope. You don't have to live like that if you don't want to. What was said to me is you can be anything you want to be and do anything you want to do, and you can do it without drugs. And I heard that. I said, okay, I want a part of that. I want a piece of that. So I don't think that racial things, I know that people are hurt behind other people's actions. When I was in school, they used to throw matches at me and try to play World War II. They want to burn me up because I'm a Jew. And I know that hurt me. But today, that kind of stuff, I laugh at it in a way and say, well, that's your problem. You got a problem, not me. I love all peoples. Short, tall, skinny, chunky like me. It doesn't matter. I love all people. There's people. So reach out and touch someone. Don't walk away without touching somebody. Give somebody that hope. Don't put a barrier on it. Just reach out and touch, even if it's a white brother. Just reach out and touch somebody. It's important. Got to do it. Hope that answered that. Any other question? I got a minute and a half. She's counting. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
My name is Joe Almanac.
Hey, Joe.
Do you see any real vast, definite difference in the fellowship and the sharing of the congregate atmosphere from the early days to now? Better or worse, or just how can you share on the involvement of what you've seen in the congregation?
Well, early days was a lot of canned stuff. In the latter days, you're seeing in-depth stuff. A lot of people get into their heart, and they share their heart. I'm more happy to hear somebody's heart than I am about war stories and junk. When you hear somebody pour out, say, "Man, I hurt inside. This happened, and I'm hurt inside." You feel that pain with them. How many of you have cried with another person that shared from the meetings? Man, you just feel it, and you just feel their energy, and you just want to cry with them. I did that. I did that with Gene. I've done that with just a lot of people. I've become a marshmallow these days. I cry at grand openings. I'm no longer a tough guy, man. I'm just somebody who feels with other people. So I like to hear feelings. You start putting me to sleep with war stories, I just don't want to hear war stories. But if you start talking about how you felt and what you're feeling like today, that's probably the thing that gets me the most. You'll stimulate me. And I'm right there with you. I'm sitting on your lap. So I'm seeing that there's a little bit more depth today than there was when we were new canned. So
I feel so bad about commenting on things, but something just popped in my head about what Corey was talking about, and I think it's really significant because here you got a black man and here you got a Jew. Well, I'm going to tell you something. The first NA meeting that I attended, the mother group on Rhodes and Moore Park, there wasn't a black man there and there wasn't a Jew there. But at the same time, there was a second meeting in Burbank. And the people that shared that meeting was in their home. and that was Bill Wexler, a Jew, and that was Zona, a black lady. And I'll tell you, that's pretty significant, and that's where it all started, my friend, right there. And we love them, and we love the meeting. And we never thought much about it. We just loved to go there, you know. And so I guess we could say that was the beginning of our lack of prejudice, or our togetherness, our connectedness to the entire community. Jew, black, white, Greek, Indian, whatever. You know.
Well, my time is up. I just want to thank you all for letting me participate in this, and I'm anxious to hear Bill next.
This is the 50th anniversary history conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and these recordings from this conference belong to the public domain. And of course, the next speaker will be Bob B. From Chula Vista, California. Oh, excuse me, that's Bill B. Excuse me. Bill has been a staunch member of NA since 1957, when there were only 50 to 100 members. His story is in the basic text, The Fat Addict. He was a personal